Oh man. Oh man. Chase. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talk with the Titans. Live from London, UK, all the way to the US of A and worldwide. I'm your host, Kalam. This is Talk with the Titans. Oh man. So as you already know, we did a show earlier on why black people are so up. Okay, why are black people so effed up? And myself, I came to the conclusion it's to do with culture. It's to do with black culture. That is the bane in our sides. Truth be told, it's the bane in our hearts. And I know a lot of the panel members that's joined us today may just disagree with me, right? You may just disagree with me. And I want you to disagree with me. And I want you guys to stimulate conversations and dialogues and make this be a talking point that we can kind of resolve amongst ourselves, right? I'm not here to be liked. I'm not here to be popular. I'm not here to be famous. All I'm here for is to provoke you guys to think and for us to actually talk about our issues and problems. So, man. Okay, cool. So let's actually get it in. So earlier on, I talked about black culture was actually the heart of the problem. Black culture is what? Black culture is how can I put it? It is a designed way of living that's been designed by the oppressors at the time, meaning the slave owners. Right, the slave owners constructed what we consider to be black culture, and as black people, or as African people, we adapted our pre-existing African culture into black culture. We adapted European culture into black culture, and then we adapted British culture as well as American subculture into black culture, and we have the cocktail today of what we know as black culture. Right. But what I'm saying to you guys is at its origin point, it was something that was designed to keep black people down, to keep black people suppressed, to keep black people, how can I put it, subordinate to white people. This whole dichotomy was created, right? There was whites and blacks. We don't have, yellows in greens or anything else, or oranges and browns. We don't have that anywhere else. We have to understand that all of this was constructed during the times of slavery. The dominant culture was called the white culture, and the submissive or suppressed and repressed, dysfunctional and victimized culture was called the blacks. Plain and simple. Now, let me actually read you out something. So this is, I want to say a definition for culture, but it's a description of culture, I would say. It says here, culture gives man the ability to reflect upon himself. It is through culture that man expresses himself, becomes aware of himself, recognizes his incompleteness, questions his own achievements, seeks untiringly for new meanings, and creates works through which he transcends his limitations. Culture is the product of ethnic identification. It is a group specific and has nothing at all to do with skin color. Okay, culture is the product of ethnic identification. It is group specific and has nothing to do with skin color. So, when I'm talking about black culture and black people, the ethnicity I'm speaking about is the Afro-Caribbeans and the Afro-Americans and the Afro-South Americans, I believe. What's the right term for it? I forgot the right term for it. All right, but these are the individuals that I'm talking about. What unites? Sorry?
Afro-Latinos.
Okay. Afro-Latinos, that's it, Afro-Latinos. And what unites all of these different groups of people is, can anybody guess what unites all these different groups of people? I'm waiting for you guys to guess. All right, what actually unites all these different groups of people is, I'm going to actually tell you in a hot second. I'm going to read out the definition of what an ethnicity is first. So when we're talking about black people, we are understanding what we're discussing. So let me read out to you what ethnicity is, because we have all different types of people, but let me read out to you what ethnicity is. Ethnicity is a reference group called upon by people who share a common history and culture, who may be identifiable because they share similar physical features and values, and who, through the process of interacting with each other and establishing boundaries with others identify themselves as being a member of that group. Ethnic identity is a sum total of group members' feelings about those values, symbols, and common histories that identify them as a distinct group. A person does not belong to an ethnic group by choice. Rather, he or she must be born into such a group and becomes related to it through emotional and symbolic ties, right? Ethnic groups are part of the master plan to take care of the world. The creation of Black and white culture is a preservation of this plan. Ethnic groups are responsible for taking care of their membership by creating culture and establishing structures, systems, and processes to facilitate their members on their journey through life. Those who have been unconsciously assimilated into Black British culture will be largely unaware of this. All right. So when we're talking about Black people, right now I'm talking about those people who share a common history within inside of slavery, within inside of the transatlantic, the transatlantic slavery. Sorry, I'm just trying to get you shown into the broadcast, Betty. Everybody keep their mics muted for now. So yeah, it's those people who share that common history, that common legacy with one another. Now, of course, all of us, we have differences. So the Africans, Americans, okay, who are Blacks, they are a separate ethnic group to the African Caribbeans or the Afro-Caribbeans. And the Afro-Caribbeans are a separate group to the Afro-Latinos as well. But we all share the same history in terms of slavery. We were all part of the transatlantic slave trade, right? That's one thing that unites us as a people. But when we were dropped off in our respective locations, i.e. the Caribbean or the Americas or in Latin America, okay, we had another form of socialization. We had another form of indoctrination and enculturation that makes us very distinct from everybody else around us, right? And I just wanted to get that point across because most of us, I know Betty is a prime advocate of this. She talks about the distinction between Africans and Caribbeans, and there is a big distinction as well. Let me quickly continue. So somebody asked as well, how is culture, how is culture passed on? Now, culture isn't something that is passed on genetically or learned or you are socialized into. Okay, it says here, education is the process whereby culture is transmitted to new generations of the group so that they can build on the knowledge and understanding transmitted instead of starting from scratch. Thus, each generation benefits from those who have gone before, as well as having legacies to create for generations to come. Culture can either be a beacon of light, revealing to us what it means to be a human being and how best to live our lives, as understood by our ancestors, or a veil and externally imposed cultural disorder, blinding us to the reality of what it means to be human, as in the case of the descendants of enslaved Africans, right? So, I earlier on, I proposed that we step out of this culture that is blinding us, that is creating all these disorders and pathologies, right? We step out of that, and we ourselves, as the intelligent ones of our community, we stand alone or stand out and separate ourselves for the time being, and we become conscious creators of culture, whereby we create a new culture for us as a people to thrive and live on, right? That was my proposition. And I'm going to just leave it there. We did discuss earlier on, I know a few of you guys, especially the women that have jumped on, we did speak about body dysmorphia, and we spoke about, weaves and wigs and perming your hair and so forth, that this is us trying to emulate the predominant or the popular culture, right? I spoke upon that. And now Betty also spoke on that, us as African people, we were doing this from time ago, hundreds of years ago, if not thousands of years ago. All right. So we're going to I know Betty wants to discuss something like that, so we can have that dialogue. We can open it up. We definitely want more females to join the panel and actually get involved with the discussions as well. 2 shows in 1 day. Yeah, Sarah, I'm putting that work, baby. So yeah, we're gonna get it on and popping. Trust me on that. So I want everybody to jump in. It doesn't matter if you are black or white, if you're African or Caribbean, or if you're Afro-Latino, or if you're Afro-American. I want your input, of course. All right. So let's get it. Let's actually get it. Anybody who wants to open up their mics right now, let me just let you know the way to get my attention is just simply by unmuting your mic about 3 times, and then I will know who to choose to speak. Right. But before all of that, I'm going to let you guys know that this Thursday at 7 p.m., right? This Thursday, 7 p.m., I'm going to have my brother Scattered Minds. We're going to try to, do a weekly show, okay? It's going to be a Scattered Minds podcast on Titans TV on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Let me get my brother in just to quickly promote that, and then I'm going to open it up to Lily.
Yo, bless Kalam. Yeah. It'll be a Scattered Minds Titans TV mashup podcast. We're going to be discussing topics like we usually do on the Scattered Minds show. For those of you who are familiar with like our format, we talk about current news, but then we usually have a big topic that's a question that we're going to talk about. So we'll talk about news within the Black community, and then this week we're going to go into a question about I think the North African question is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I think this topic we're discussing today on Black culture will kind of lead into that in terms of when we're talking about Africa, where do North Africans stand? What is the stand on Africans and North Africans? There has been within Pan-Africanism a historical discussion between the Casablanca group and the Monrovia group. The Casablanca group who said yes, the North Africans are Africans, and the Monrovia group who said Africans are Black, and that's specific. So Arabs couldn't fit into that. So that's a discussion I want to have with Kalam and Titans, and hopefully maybe we'll open up to a panel. We'll see. But yeah, that's this Thursday. So tune into that. And also subscribe to Scattered Minds Show. I got a couple of videos posting there too.
Awesome. All right, so let me open up to Lily, and I'm going to post the link in the comment section for you guys who want to join in. All right, bear with me.
Oh, hello. Is it my turn? All right then. Hi, how you doing? First off, I just want to get this out of the way that I'm half African American and Latino, so I identify kind of as Afro-Latino. I mean Latina. And the second thing that I want to say is in the other video we were in the comments, people were saying like, oh, do we really have to talk about this? It's boring. We have more important things to talk about. We don't want to talk about hair and fashion and stuff. And what I have to say about that is this is a very important topic, and it's like an emotional topic. It has to do with our identity. And what's more important than the morale of our women and children? Like, it is an important topic. I mean, if it's boring, then I guess you don't have to listen to it. But I think it is important because it affects women from like their childhood through their whole life. Anyway, like, so me personally, I do relax my hair, and I don't do it because I'm trying to look a certain way. I do it because it's the only way that I know how to manage my hair. Because I didn't have like Black relatives growing up that could teach me how to take care of Black hair. And my mom, bless her, like she tried her best, but she used like the wrong products that I don't think would have worked the best on my hair. And I had a ton of problems. I was like 12, in my room crying, cutting my hair with scissors. And then like again, when I was 16, I just like buzzed it all off and had a tiny afro. and then I just didn't know what the heck to do with it. And I think that education should be very important in this. Like, we need to educate our Black women and just in general in the community on how to take care of their hair, because like we really don't know. And even not having the relatives in my household that could teach me how to do it. Like, I remember I was older and I went to a Black hair salon, and this woman butchered my hair. So even the hairdressers didn't know what they were doing. She fried my hair, and it's a tough issue, and it's very emotional. So that's all I had to say for now.
Thank you, Queen. There's so much to touch on that, but I want some of my ladies to come in possibly melanated goddess, if you've got anything, any advice or anything else that you wanted to add onto that, please do.
I want to say peace to everyone on the panel. I would say on the topic of natural hair and the process of kind of how now it's kind of popularized that everyone wants to have natural hair. I enjoy that movement. I love that movement. I love that my sisters are embracing their natural hair, but it's not an easy journey. I was very interested that the sister identified as an Afro-Latina, and I guess technically I'm an Afro-Latina as well. However, I never introduced myself as that, and I just say that I'm a Black woman. Both of my parents are Black, and they happen to be born in Central America. Spanish was their first language. My siblings are still in Panama. My grandmother and so forth, everyone passed speak Spanish. However, I was born in America and I speak English, and I seldomly speak Spanish. But on the topic of natural hair, I can recall in 2004, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and I cut all my hair off, and my hair started growing, and I wanted to get a job. And I went on job interviews. It was very difficult for me to get hired, a little tiny afro. And I remember going to the salon, and I asked the woman to press my hair, thinking that I would be more presentable. And I'm putting on some of these words so you can hear the social pressures that women face. So when you comment, not you particularly, Kalam, but when people comment that we're trying to seem white, they just do not understand the social pressures that society and our men put on looking a certain way. And I remember the stylist telling me, "You don't want me to put a perm in your hair?" And I said, "No." And this was a Black woman. I said, "No, I don't want a perm." And she said, "Well, let me just put a jerry curl or something. I mean, to make it more manageable." And long story short, I had since relaxed, gone natural, relaxed, gone natural. And I'm over 8 or 9 years now. I've had 4 years, and I will never, ever put that horrible chemical in my system again. But I'm now at a place where I embrace all of who I am, every coil, every kink, everything about being African. I embrace it as my badge. So for me, it did take a lot of research, a lot of studying, learning different products, trial, because we can't go to our parents. We can't go to our mothers and our aunts because they are addicted to this perm stuff. So we have to learn on our own how to manage the hair that, grows out of our scalp. So I'm interested to hear what the sister Betty has to say on the topic as well. And I'll chime in.
Definitely. And before Betty comes in, family members, can I get you to please hit the like button on this? This is like a very different show. For me, I love these types of shows because we really get into the root of it. We're having people who can actually, speak about this in a very intelligent fashion, in a very articulate fashion, and can share their own experiences with a broader community. And this is something that can actually impact on people's life and change their lives in real time, right? Real time. So please, I'm going to beg of you guys to keep hitting the share button and hit the like button. So we can get this spread out as far as possible. And for those of you guys who hit the dislike button, please, if you don't like the show, please remove yourselves from the show and tell other people who are interested in the show to come onto the show. Yeah. We want positive energy for this one. And this is something that I really would love for us as a community to do. Me and Sarah, Gabs, and a few other people have been speaking about this, that we really want to have a cultural center set up in different areas, right? We want cultural centers set up in different areas of London, in different areas of America, different areas of Europe and Africa and so forth, right? Where we can have a hub where women, right? Women, children, everybody can go to for that education and information that they need, where they can have other women that they can sit down with and share their experiences, where other people can give you hints and tips of what you can actually do as a woman to, to have the best and productive experience that you can living in this world. Like, can we set something like this up? Can we do this for ourselves? Like, this topic is very interesting because I know myself. I know you're not gonna cuss me out for this, man. Them, I don't give a damn, fam. I used to watch them YouTube videos, yeah, with the women, and it was just so amazing just to see like beautiful, proud Black women, displaying what it is to be a Black woman in terms of like all the different hairstyles that you can actually do, the ease of putting your hairstyles, actually setting it the night before, and the morning, what you can do, different products that you can use, different products that you yourself can create. And if you're even making wigs for yourselves, I used to sit down and binge watch some of these videos, because it interested me, because I knew that when I have my own children and my own daughters, right, I need to be able to do this. I remember, growing up, and I had, my own stepdad. He used to do my sister's hair. Like, he used to be like doing her hair. I'm like, yo, for nothing. I had long hair as a child here, growing up, and I used to try to do 1-2 twists. And what I could do was those twists called? Those China bumps. That's as much as I can do. So I was always like in awe, just seeing that as a Black man being able to, cane roll his daughter's hair. I was like, wow, that's incredible. I would love to be able to do that when I grow up, and share that experience with my daughter. But anyways, I'm talking a bit too much. Let me get everybody else back into the panel. So Betty, talk to us, Queen. Talk to us.
Hello everyone, and I want to greet everybody on the panel and everybody in the chat room and listening. Okay, I want to take it right back to hairstyling in Africa. People have mentioned, many people believe that hair extensions, wigs, weaves are only worn by women in Africa in ancient times and now. And that's not actually true. It's been worn by men and women. And to this very day, the Maasai warriors, who are men, wear hair extensions. Yeah. So I'm going to read from a book called Black Women in Antiquity, edited by Ivan Sertima. Yeah. It says, there is little evidence to show that Egyptian women wore their hair in cane-roll styles, but they did wear braids, twists in short layers and in long, heavy, down to shoulder styles. Wigs of all styles were worn by all classes of Egyptian and Nubian women for social and ceremony events. They were made of natural hair, kinky and straight hair, sheep's wool, and animal fibers. Yeah, wigs have been made to protect the head from the rays of the sun, for religious, social, and hygiene purposes. So when people talk about African women wearing weaves, wigs, and stuff like that, it's not just African women doing it, it's men too. So let's get that point straight. And there's still African men and African women doing this in Africa today. Yeah. So this point of saying that the reason why African women are wearing hair extension is due to trying to emulate European styles becomes a bit of a moot point. There may be some women doing that, but not all of them can be doing that. Because when we're talking about hair extensions, this book clearly says that the hair extensions and the wigs were made with straight and kinky hair. Yeah. Sheep's wool and animal fibers. Yeah. And plant fibers. So the question is, thousands and thousands of years ago in Africa, were they also suffering from self-hate when they were not using their natural hair? Yeah. And what is the purpose of hair extensions? I am studying hairdressing and I've been a hairdresser for a long time. There are many reasons to wear extensions. A lot of it's to do with protecting the hair. Yeah. So because let's say a lot of Black men are talking, but they don't even know anything about hairstyling. Yeah. And this book was written by obviously a black man, Ivan Sertimore. So it's a hard book to get hold of, obviously because it's about black women. A lot of black books that are about black women seem to be very hard to get hold of. But I suggest that you take a look at this book. And there's also a video, and on the video you have what looks to be a weave track that dates back to 4700 BC. A false fringe of curly hair. Yeah? So the video is on Chime, Hair Crush's channel. But I would suggest that people have a look at that before they talk so much.
All right. Thank you, Betty. All right. So right now, I would love for the women on the panel. Actually, I don't know if the men wanted to say anything, but I would really love for the women on the panel, right, to give some real-time hints and tips of what women can do if they're black women, what they can do with their hair. Because of course, we know that our family members, i.e. mothers or aunties, may not have given us the best advice, right? Many of us have been brought up what I quote unquote call black culture. We've been grown up and indoctrinated to actually look at other people, other cultures for our ideals of beauty. And we do very destructive things to ourselves and to our bodies. So I'm going to focus right now into our bodies. And the part of our body that we're focusing on is our scalps and our hair. So if somebody wanted to go on a natural journey, okay, or they wanted to embrace their natural African, Caribbean, African American, African Latino, self and their styles that they can produce, what would be the one hint, a tip that you would tell them to go and do? Right? So I'm going to shoot that out to Melanated Goddess.
Okay. What I would do or recommend for a sister who doesn't, first of all, it's just a lot of preparing yourself mentally, because coming against the reaction of other people when they see you kind of not fitting into the norm is going to be a challenge, especially if you're not secure in yourself. So I think I heard the quote that says that when your hair is relaxed, people around you are relaxed. So it's almost as if your hair kind of has some sort of like political statement. It's making a statement like, I am not going with the grain. I'm not going with the norm. And you just got to prepare yourself for that. But I would say, as far as with the maintenance, one of the things that I learned with caring for my hair is that never try to comb an afro while your hair is dry. It is painful, and it kind of can create some sort of resentment, because when you have a relaxer, your hair is flat to your scalp and you can just comb it easily. And I learned to lightly dampen my hair with a spray bottle and comb my hair from the ends to the root instead of from the root to the ends. If you go from the root to the ends, you're literally tearing out your hair, out your scalp. Again, these are things my mother wasn't even able to teach me. Thank God for YouTube. I swear, I learned so much from these women on YouTube. I actually take care of my own locks. I never have gone to anyone to get my hair done. I learned everything on YouTube. Some of the products that you use, like heavy grease and things like that, you just don't need. I use regular olive oil or coconut oil, add it to damp hair, and then when it dries, it's nice and moisturized, and it's soft. At least it might not look like on these commercials flowing in the air, but it's very soft and manageable. Trying to think what else. And we do not, as Black people, we do not need to be washing our hair every single day. That is a recipe for your hair to dry out and break. There's a nice little natural hair term called co-wash, which means condition wash. So you still wash your hair. You can wash your hair, I guess, as often as you want, but you don't use shampoo. You basically use water to rinse out dirt and then you add condition and water together, called co-wash, and you wash your hair with conditioner. And then, so when I had an afro, I would co-wash my hair maybe even twice a week. And then on the weekends, I would, scrub it out with the shampoo and so forth. And then style, do a twist out or something like that. But I say locks is the way to go, but I'm just biased. That's all I got for you.
Jeez, I like that. I like that. All right, let me go to Lily Kervo.
Hi. I think it would be so cool to have a black hair school. When you say locks, you say you did your locks yourself, like you've never gotten anyone to do them for you. You just did them like all yourself from scratch.
Yeah. To be 100% honest, I don't know if you're familiar with what faux locks are, which faux locks are like basically like fake locks. So what I did was I started with fake locks, and then I just allowed my hair to lock, and then I cut the fake part off, and that was actually 4 years ago. So I don't know, my hair is like down pat to the middle of my back now.
Okay, you're gonna need to explain that to me later.
So as far as like going to what they call a loctician and having your hair professionally done and all of those beautiful elaborate styles that people who have locks do. I'm sorry, my child's trying to FaceTime me. I've never actually done that, but if you get faux locks, it's like similar to having regular extensions or braids, but they style it in a way that mimics having locks. So normally people would wear that for a couple of months and take it out. What I did was I didn't take it out. I actually just twisted my hair as if I had locks, and a year later, I just had locks. My hair was just locked. And then I just took scissors and cut the fake part off and left my hair.
Okay, cool.
Awesome as well, right? I'm gonna say I'm not knocking wigs and weaves and so forth, right? A lot of women usually go through that process of wearing wigs and so forth to keep their hair protected during that how can I put it, during that nurturing period, right? A lot of women do that, especially understanding the climate of their workplace, right? A lot of women realize that their workplace, it's a lot of problems, as my sister said. Like if your hair doesn't appear to be relaxed, right? The people around you aren't relaxed. So we have to be very cautious of what we're doing in our environment, right? If it's going to have an impact upon your life, I'm not going to recommend you doing certain things. But if you're able to handle that impact on your life and it makes you happier and it makes you prideful in being who you are in your natural self, I would definitely encourage you doing that. Yes, let me get Betty on real quickly. Yeah, Betty, go ahead, Queen.
I just wanted to confer and say one of the issues is what do you define as natural hair? Yeah, if you put chemicals on your hair, so if you put hair color in your hair is no longer natural. Yeah. Some people have a different idea of what is natural hair. Yeah. So if you're wearing hair extensions, then some people still say that's natural hair if your hair is not chemically processed. But one thing that I want for people to understand is, if you're wearing hair extensions, that is an African style. That did not come in. The Europeans didn't invent hair extensions for Africans, yeah? That is one of the protective styles. It's not just a short-term hairstyle for you to use while you grow out your relaxer. That is what our mothers have been doing for thousands of years. That is why they're able to find hair extensions thousands and thousands of years old. Yeah, this is our tradition that our mothers have been doing. Yeah, now Ivan Sittima has wrote about it, and so has Sheikh Anta Diop wrote about it. Yeah, so this idea that we should just give up just because some people are claiming that you have to be natural. Who gets to define what is natural if they've not even bothered to even look at the history of hairstyling in Africa? Because what you're getting is extremes. People are acting extreme to obviously the dominant culture of white culture. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, they are still people wearing hair extensions and been doing it for thousands of years. So please don't put it out there like people only doing this because they want to look like white women. First and foremost, black women don't buy white women's hair. White women don't sell their hair. It's very expensive to buy white European hair. The hair that white black women buy is Asiatic hair. Yeah, you can't afford Russian women's hair. It's Asiatic hair. Yeah. And the hair that you're actually buying is normally from black Asians, yeah? Or the yellow type Asians, yeah? So this idea that you're buying European hair, you're not emulating it because you can't even afford it, for one. Yeah? That's what I just wanted to say. So who gets to define what is natural hair?
All right. So unfortunately, most of the black females aren't actually coming from a conscious standpoint, right, where they know about ancient Egyptians' hairstyles, and they're trying to emulate that, or that is their ideal of beauty that they're trying to emulate. Most of the black women today are emulating popular culture, all right, and popular culture or the dominant society, they're trying to emulate that, and that's usually trying to take on those types of ideals, right? And that is what we're saying, that you don't need to do that. You can look back into history. You could look back into culture. You could look back in Americans and African diaspora for inspiration of how to wear your hairstyles. You need to look back into your history to find out what were the people, the women of your time, or sort of your ethnicity, what were they doing to keep up their hair? What is the best way to upkeep your hair? What are the most up-to-date academic ways of nourishing your hair, nourishing your scalp, making sure that you're healthy? Because a lot of us were putting products in our hairs, men, women, both of us were putting products in our hair that is having a damaging and adverse effect to us. Is giving us things such as it's making us have hair losses, where I don't want to say alopecia. There's a lot of things that's happening to us as a people because we're damaging our hair because we don't even know how to look after it or take care of it, because colonization and slavery has kind of eliminate that aspect of who we are in terms of the upkeep and the upkeep of our hair. So we need to kind of relearn how to look after ourselves, relearn how to wash our hair, how to comb our hair, how to marinate our hair. You dig what I'm saying? How to protect our hair. We need to relearn all of these things, and we need women to come together to actually create a body of knowledge that they can actually spread out throughout the whole diaspora to keep women, up to date and keep women prideful of who and what they are. Go on, Melanated Goddess, talk to me.
I would just like to say that the topic of hair for a Black woman is a very sensitive topic. And I usually, don't get into the conversation. But I do feel like my background is in mental health, right? And so I'm just inclined to think of the psychology behind the whole hair extension, weave, wigs, braids, all that kind of stuff, right? And in America, I can speak about American culture. I would have to agree with Kalam that a lot of the women who wear wigs or weave, they are not celebrating their ancestors. They are not doing it in a way. Now, I'm not saying, across the board, every single woman and none of them know their history. No. I'm part of many conscious Facebook groups, and I know a lot of my sisters do know their history, and they will tell you in a minute, our ancestors had weaves and that, they're very familiar with their history, but that's a Facebook group. That's not all of Facebook. That's not indicative of on a larger scale. This is representative of Black women in general. And I think that when you look at the images that are acceptable, that are promoted, they are not women with hair like Angie Stone and Jill Scott and Erykah Badu. Those aren't the images that are promoted on social media, that are on television, just our newscasters. My cousin's girlfriend has natural hair. She works for a television channel here locally in the Washington, D.C. area, and she wears a wig to work every single day because her hair is not acceptable. It's not an acceptable image to be the face of this channel that she's a part of. So when she goes to different events, she has to look accordingly. When she comes home, that's the only time her hair gets an opportunity to breathe. So what does that do for a Black woman's psychology? She looks in the mirror at herself right before she goes to bed, and she's saying that this is not good enough. The world doesn't see this as good enough. And for a lot of women, I work with women, I've never seen their real hair a whole 365 days. Never seen it, because they probably go to the salon with their hair, their natural hair, and they leave with the fake hair. And the only time it gets a breather is when they're getting it done and getting new hair on. Those are the women I believe that Kalam is talking about, that have some deep-rooted issues, that are unable to accept themselves, that are unable to look at their coils and their kinks as beautiful, that they look at afros and they look at locks as untamed, matted, barbaric type of hair, and they idolize, the hair textures that are really from their oppressors. So where do we get this acceptance that this is what beauty is? That's kind of what what I had to say about that.
Love. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Queen. Right now, I actually want to open it up to a wider range of discussion. So earlier on, we was talking about, actually I didn't talk about this, but basically us as human beings, there's 5 different dimensions to us, and the core dimension to us, this real soul of us, is our culture. But there's other things that make us who we are, right? There is our body, which actually encapsulates our emotions, our spiritual self, and of course our mind, right? So I want to talk about these different areas. Okay, so we got our body, we got our mind, we got our emotions, and we have our consciousness, or our spiritual self. I want us to discuss, the various different problems that are facing us in terms of our physical bodies. What are the different issues that are facing us in terms of our mind? What is the different problems that's facing us in terms of our emotions as a people, our consciousness, or spirituality as our people? Now I'm going to open it up for any of you guys, right, who hasn't spoken already, to just latch onto one of those things, and let's discuss, right? So we can stick onto the body topic, we can move away from the hair, we can move on to our faces, we can move on to our skin complexions, we can move on to anything else. I'm going to leave it to you guys to open it up and discuss all the different problems that's facing us as a people. So I see Raz has unmuted his mic. Anybody else who would like to speak as well, just unmute your mic and mute your mic again. So far, okay, and then Scattered Minds. Okay, so Raz, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that African culture is also the culture that's in the diaspora. It's not different. It's just an evolution of the culture that was brought over by the Africans.
Okay, all right. I would definitely say there is a remnants of African culture. I personally would object to saying that it is the same culture, but I hear you. Scattered Minds, go ahead.
Yo, yeah, bless. Okay, cool. So a couple of things. So I'd like to jump on with on the hair topic quickly, because obviously, I think obviously as a man, you don't really have much to say. But obviously, I grew up with dreadlocks, and having dreads as a Black person, back in the day, there was a little bit of a conflict or a little bit of negativity towards having dreadlocks until Lil Wayne got them. Do you know what I mean? I had dreads before it was cool and before it was in, and you got a lot of negativity from white people, but you got also a lot from the Black community too. So it's interesting how we actually have that self-hate towards ourselves, our own natural hair and natural hairstyle sometimes. And so that's why it could be difficult. And if it's difficult for a man, I can see how it could be much more difficult for a woman too. But on from that topic to talk, adding to what Ulrich's point was about Black culture being an evolution of African culture in the Caribbean. I agree with that to some extent, but I also see what you're saying as well when you say, Kalam, when you're talking about Black culture having been something embedded and given and been something in some ways which is negative. And I'll say, talk about it in this way though. Obviously, it's difficult for me to understand that perspective growing up, being Jamaican and coming from Jamaican background and culture, also coming up, from a Rastafarian background and culture, do you know what I mean? So alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim now, but my culture is still Rastafarian. I've come from a Rastafarian background, and as a Rastafarian background, we always was taught about loving Africa. We were always taught that we was African first, and much of us took on a lot of African culture and African spiritualism and African ideologies directly. So within the Caribbean, there's always been a connection to Africa through those links and that link, and there's always been conscious communities amongst the Black culture. However, there has always been to some extent a negative response to that. So, for example, Bustamante, the president of Jamaica, actually killed an edict, sent out an edict to kill all Rastafarians. Do you know what I mean? He didn't, and other Jamaicans took up that call. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of Jamaicans were against the Rastafarian culture or the Rastafarian ideology.
But sorry, can I reply? Can I just? Yeah, but is that a natural cause? Like for example, and there's many situations of Africans in the diaspora having movements. Certain Africans in the diaspora having movements to eradicate the ideology that African people worldwide are, united. But is this a natural occurrence, or is it an implant of the colonialists at the time to try and, hammer down on dissent on people who would want to return and unify with the continent?
Yeah, no, I heard that. There was definitely influence towards that idea, but I was just saying that, there is definitely been a clash between, the African Caribbeans, as it were, and the Africans on the continent. Do you know what I mean? And those who in the Caribbean embraced Africans on the continent faced some negativity too. And much of it is because of colonization and because of the system that they were in. Do you know what I mean? But it's not just. But that doesn't take away from the fact that much of Black culture that we have today, to some extent, has negativity or has negative connotations to it.
Of course, I agree with you 100%. But what I'm saying is this: is that these feelings of resentment for Africans in the continent wouldn't be there if a third party wasn't involved in stirring up these arguments. Like for example, when Marcus Garvey was about unification of African people worldwide, there was people in the Americas that were against the idea that Africans in the Americas are related to Africans in the continent. And people always think that Africans in the continent were the ones that invented this ideology that they are separate from us. Actually, it wasn't. It was the other way around. So you have a situation where third parties influence these people to make decisions for the deunification of the African people worldwide. So it's not a natural occurrence. It's not like people chose naturally, or it was a natural progression. Because if you see like the Australians are still connected to the United Kingdom, and they're very proud of their connection. The French in Louisiana are still very much proud of their French connection. So wherever Europeans go, they're still proud to be European. But for some reason, certain people in the diaspora and even in the continent don't want to have this connection with each other. And I'm posing the question to the panel that is this a natural occurrence, or this a majority of it influenced by third parties?
Mirage, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you with absolute certainty, but I can tell you this. In the USA, okay, the majority of people, and this has been going on for generations, do not identify themselves with African people or with the continent of Africa. Okay, there can be a whole lot of reasons for it, but it's a fact of life. It's been that way for generations. Okay. Also, there have been many Africans who have come into the diaspora directly from a country on the continent of Africa, they come to U.S. and they make a lot of disparaging comments, okay, directly against, okay, Black people in America who identify themselves as Americans rather than Africans because of how they grew up, the system that they grew up in, okay, and the fact that they don't know their connections to family members or ancestors who lived on the continent of Africa. So I think that in some cases it's utter confusion and lack of knowledge.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%, Eric. But what I'm saying is that these are not natural occurrences in the evolution of the societies that were in the Americas. Because if you see the way every other community that is disconnected from their original source, they still have a pride and they still have a longing to reconnect to their people wherever their people came from, even if they don't know exactly where their people came from and the towns that they grew up with. This connection of this let's say racial identity worldwide that connects them as people, they still long for it. But what you see with the African diaspora and the continental Africans is that this disconnect, and it's not natural. It's not a natural disconnect. It's more of a forced disconnect as well, because you can see like throughout history and the way certain music like samba and they're
All right,
exactly the same.
brother, let me just open that up. Let me open it up for everybody else. So let me open it up to everybody else. If everybody else can just chime in on this, one at a time though, and have your say on this. So if I can go to Ultra Funky and go down the line. Ultra Funky,
Yes, sir.
are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that?
If I'm honest with you, Callum, I do apologize. I'm at work. I've only literally tuned in the last 4 seconds.
All right.
Yeah. The last one I heard was Yurick say something about disconnect. I'm not sure exactly how I can contribute, but I will say I grew up in obviously a West Indian household, and I remember growing up, for some reason, there was a divide between Jamaicans and Africans. And growing up, I could never understand why. But it always troubled me that like Jamaicans would have a problem with just Africans, and Jamaicans would have a problem with other Caribbeans from other islands and have special names for them. That always troubled me, and I don't know where it stems from. But yeah, I don't know if that contributes to the show at all. I'm literally still at work.
It does.
Just out of interest, has anyone else had a similar experience?
Yes. So definitely we have that. I think a lot of us have that similar experience if we're kind of Caribbean households or African households. We have derogatory terms to call Caribbeans. We call them Jamos, and we definitely do look down at them from a 9-point or African standpoint. We definitely do look down at other African ethnicities as well.
I don't understand.
Caribbean households.
I don't understand why. And it's not until like adulthood and university, I'm like, hang on a second. We're all African. Like, what was that stuff you was teaching me?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And it's crazy anyway. But yeah, look, listen, I'm gonna have to just mute my mic for a little while. I'm nearly finished, but I hope that contributed. Yeah, I'm out.
Facts. We will go into that and discuss, where it actually originated from. But we want to know right now: is this something that's natural, or is this something that another group has imposed upon us as a people? Is that what you were saying, Brother Ulrich?
Yes, this is what I'm saying, because if you look at the way like things have other societies that are disconnected from their diaspora, their origins, they still long to have a communication with them. Again, they still long to have this kind of connection.
Cool. Let me pass that question on so everybody else can have a stab at it. So I'm gonna go to Scoring 57, then Scattered Minds, and then over to Bay. So scoring 57. Are you able to speak?
Yeah, I can speak. I don't know if I have much to add to that right now. I'm just mainly trying to listen to the conversation, I think.
All right, no problem. All right, so Scattered Minds.
Yeah. So I have a similar experience. Well, not really. I don't have a similar experience at all. Obviously, like I was saying, I grew up in a Rastafarian household, and so we always claimed our Africanness. However, I do have experiences of other Caribbean people. Like I wish my brother was here, because he has that experience of growing up as a Caribbean person and having that sort of negativity towards Africans. But obviously, I didn't really have that. But I also think that when you actually look at the new younger generation and this generation of woke kids who are growing up, quote unquote, that they are actually embracing a lot of the Africanness from the Caribbean and in the Americas as well. But I do agree it's not a complete picture. There's still a massive disconnect between the two, and there's still work to be done there. And but to ask the question about from Ulrich, is this natural? Is it imposed? I think it's a bit of both. I think at the beginning it definitely has been imposed. The Biden rule was like the main policy used to establish colonialism. So it was definitely imposed. However, I think there's a natural type of nationalism that always creeps in. So amongst the Caribbeans, you have national pride amongst the islands, and there's national pride within Africa. Even if you look at Nigerians and Ghanaians, etc. So there's always been that national sort of rivalry, and that's something that is relatively natural. But there is an imposition too of those rivalries. I'd also say that whilst we're talking about the Caribbean as having a black culture which has been imposed, I'd also say within Africa, there's also been a certain African culture that has been to some extent possibly imposed. And my argument would be that, whilst African Caribbean people and African Americans definitely did go through slavery, things weren't all good in Africa either. Africa went through a long period of colonization, a long period of rule by the British, by the French, by the Spanish, the Portuguese, and Italians, German, Dutch, whoever could get their hands on Africa, basically. And they imposed and they created Africa. And even today we have, Nigeria, like the borders that they still have in Africa are still dictated by Western or European colonialism. So I think we'd all, African Caribbeans and Africans, share a similar history of being colonized and effed, to be fair. Yeah, I'm done.
All right. Let me jump over to Betty, then over to, and then over to James, and then back over to the goddesses. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to relate back to the hair thing in terms of, because I think some people don't seem to understand that hair is really important in Africa, and you can tell many African groups, especially the women, by the hairstyle they wear prior to, Western European colonization. And to this day, you can still tell some ethnic groups just by how they wear their hairstyle. So when you start talking about locs, what can happen if, because of Rastafarianism and the cultural influence of Jamaica, if there are many people in Africa that if you wear that hairstyle, they're going to think you're mad. Yeah. So the Rastafarian may be preaching that this is your natural hair, you must love it, but you need to understand that not every single African wore that hairstyle, and grooming their hair is really important. So if you do wear that hairstyle, there's certain places, certain villages, certain ethnic groups that they will see you as mad. Don't understand that culture is born in Jamaica, and understand that Africa is not monolithic.
I would
It's not
disagree.
one type of culture. Yeah,
I would
'cause
disagree.
I know that. Well, you can disagree with that, but I'm still talking. Yeah. In terms of what you said about the negative portrayal or how Africans treat Caribbeans, well, that's going to be some of it. Just the hairstyle alone, is people going to think that you're mad? Yeah, not all Africans, but they are going to be Africans that will think you're mad because they would never have wore their hair like that. But also in terms of the hate works both ways. I had a very negative experience from Caribbean people growing up. You know, that, you know, they were African breech straps on, making fun of your hair, everything. And they never mentioned descending from Africans. So if you say that Africans treat the descendant of the offspring of slaves as like subhuman or whatever, the hate works both ways.
Definitely, definitely. I think you know, the Queen did say something that was very important there, that Africa is not a monolith. It doesn't have a monolithical culture. There is vast diversity. It has to be one of the most diverse continent on the face of this earth. I'm going to go over to James and then over to Lily. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, no, just I think piggyback off I think Scattered was talking about being Caribbean and his experience and stuff like that. With me, I didn't really know anything because my family weren't too cultural, even on the Caribbean side. But I noticed when I was trying to make friends with Africans, their parents seemed to like make me aware of the difference between me and them. So that's how I actually knew there was a difference between like Caribbeans and Africans. I didn't really know. I wasn't really aware, probably ignorant, but yeah. And then this is the question I've been trying to answer. I've been trying to find the answer to, and it's this. It's like growing up, I always had the thing like I was asking, did we, as Caribbeans, did we get sold or did we get stolen? That is the question I actually want to know, because. And then some people in the chat said both. So I'm thinking, did my ancestors get sold by Africans or did they get stolen by white people? Because if I got sold, why would I want a connection to a nation that essentially sold me? Why can't I just be happy with my new identity, which is Caribbean, and try and make the best of that? Why am I trying to reconnect back to a continent or area or culture or civilization that didn't essentially want me? My people were probably the lowest of them, which is why they got sold. So it's like, yeah, I'm just trying to find answers and trying to make sense of all of this, to be honest. So yeah, that's all for now.
I think that what you just you know, highlighted there, I think is a very important topic, and I think we should save that for another show. We should stick a pin into that. That's a very, very you know, pertinent question right there, and we should really discover it all together. So thank you, James, for your contribution. Lily, can I get you in?
Yeah, I was just listening to what Betty had to say, and I thought it was important when she said the hate goes both ways. There's a little bit of a back and forth in the chat, or there was a few minutes ago, about oh gosh, like mixed blacks versus like pure blacks, if that's the thing. I don't really think so, but like there was someone who said that they're trying to promote mixed race as superior or something, which is ridiculous. I would never say that, and no one's on this show has said that. But like, okay, when I was in high school, I remember one time when we were in lunch, and we had a group of friends that we all hung out with, and it was like black girls, white girls, mixed, whatever. And one day, one of the black girls said, "This is the black table, only black kids can sit here." And she was African American, and she was telling a North African who was born in Africa, but North Africa, who was light skinned, that she couldn't sit there. But I was allowed to sit there because I was half black. And I'm like, who gets to say who's black or not? Is it because of your skin color? Is it because, like, what is it that makes you not black enough? And I thought that was hypocritical. I I didn't like it. I don't agree with that. Like, do you want the community to be unified or divided? It's really sad when we have this like inner division, and black women and men having like hatred towards each other within our own community when we're supposed to be trying to unify. But then there are certain people who want to cast out, like, you're not black enough, your skin's too light, or you're just, I don't know, you're too mixed or whatever. And like, it's sad, really. And I don't think there's, I don't know. I know there's people who disagree with me, but I just want, like, what's black enough? Should there even be a gradient for that? Or can we all just get along?
Indeed. All right, family members, right? Can I get you guys to hit the like button like crazy, please? If you haven't already hit the like, please support us here on, don't worry, I've got you, Queen. Please support us here on Titans TV by hitting the like button. We have a lot of beautiful, intelligent, hearted and minded people with us right now. I would really love for their voices to be heard by a larger, mass of people. So please hit the like button as much as possible and support Titans TV, because this is the conversations that we need, right? We need these type of conversations. So I'm going to get my queen to, speak right now. I think the only person who hasn't spoken so far is Melanated Goddess, and then I'm going to just wrap it up with some knowledge, baby. So let's get it. Melanated Goddess.
For Africans and continental Africans.
Sorry, is it me or everybody?
Melanated Goddess.
You're fading
Yes.
in and out, Queen. You're fading in and out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, on the topic of diasporic Africans and continental Africans, I guess I was kind of privileged to grow up in one of the most diverse communities in New York City. So in addition to my family being from Central America, my best friends were from Trinidad and Guyana and Haiti and DR and everywhere else. But I will say that everyone has a certain level of pride from their particular country. So you have the Guyanese having issues with the Trinis because people want to say their accent sounds similar. You got the Jamaicans, they think they better than everybody else. You got the Panamanians, they think, so I want to say that everyone kind of has some sort of level of pride in their country. But I think what brings attention is the continental Africans, some of their only experience of diasporic Africans are what they see on social media, what they see on television. And they don't want to be associated with that. So that's why they say, oh, I'm not African American. I'm not this group. I'm not Housewives of Atlanta. I'm not The Wire. I'm not all of these, world star hip hop. They don't want to be associated with that. So they kind of draw the line in the sand, like their boundaries of their identification to kind of distinguish between, what you want to call Black culture and African culture. And honestly, I can't blame them. You know what I mean? If that's not your norm, heck no, I don't want to be associated with that. So when I see someone acting crazy and they say, "Oh, that's how New York females are," I say, "No, no, no. I wish I could say I was from New Jersey because look at how they're acting, and they're making us a bad name." Unfortunately, or fortunately, I think it's fortunately, we look alike. So we all get dumped in the same bucket, but our cultural experiences, our environments, our upbringing, some of those things are very different. And some of those things are the same. So my sister's from Nigeria. I hung out with her every day. We ate similar foods. We liked the same music. Just the words to her music was different than the words on soca or reggae. I mean, I love African movies. I mean, all of those things are very similar because of the diasporic influence. So to me, I think a lot of it has to do with this negative stigma that the Black culture has and people not wanting to be associated with that.
Powerful. Can I get you guys
May I
to
chime in on that? May I chime in on that?
Not right now, not right now. Can I get you guys to mute your mics real quickly? And if anybody here, can any of you guys give up yours? I've seen you, Bay. I just need somebody to give up their spot. We've got quite a few people trying to get in right now. We've got Sarah
Yeah,
trying
Callum.
to get in.
Yeah, Callum. Listen, I'm gonna make way for brother Sarah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Cool.
brother. Take care, everyone. Peace.
All right, King. Bless. All right. So I'm going to free up a few spots. If anybody else would like to just give up their spots, there's a few people that would like to get in. We've got Run From Your Wife trying to get in as well.
Yeah, if anyone else is trying to get in now,
Yeah.
I'll call, I guess.
All right, King. Cool. We got Sci-Fi Living up in the comment section. Peace and love and salute to you, Queen. Hawaii, big ups to Times TV and the family and hosting the discussion. Oh man, y'all are involved today. All right, so Sarah's just joined us, and I actually wanted to speak on this real quickly. And I like to come with some information. Run From Your Wife is just joined us as well. Awesome. I wanted to bring some information because for me, I think this is a get you guys to just mute your mics, please. I think this is a byproduct or feature of the institution of slavery as well as colonization, right? The education process that we were indoctrinated in as Afro-Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, and Afro-Latinos, Latinos, that has created our personal outlook of the world. And of course, the colonization that took place in Africa has also created a distinctive outlook as well. And let me just read something out. It says here that enslaved Africans were taken from their natural environment and placed in a closed system in the middle of the Atlantic, where they were subjugated to a socialization process administered by the white slave owners, known as seasoning. All right, they were seasoned, was designed to transform their psychology in similar ways. In the 21st century, the descendants of enslaved Africans find themselves culturally isolated from their roots and trapped in the closed system of British culture, which on the whole, they do not understand. The system was and is closed in that literally all avenues of escape are closed off, and the descendants of enslaved Africans are trapped in the black-white duality in their mind world. Within this closed system, they are forced to conform or be marginalized. Now, there is actually of this isolation and seasoning, right? The first one is closed system. Second one is accommodationist behavior, culture of passivity, divide or fragmented group dynamics, and white abstemianism. Okay, and just to touch on divide or fragmented group dynamics, because that's kind of what we're suffering from. I like to call it the crabs in the barrel mentality, where we want to fight or fight each other, or the tribalistic mentality where we're really trying to tear down each other. And this comes in from institutionalized slavery, as well as the education process that was given to us via colonization. It says here, the foregoing features placed immense strain on the ability of the physically and the psychologically enslaved to take care of the needs of their own families. Allegiance instead became focused on the descendants of the slave owners and the benefits to be gained from fostering these relationships, especially when favor and patronage is found among them. Within the institution of slavery, whites as well as Arabs had absolute power over blacks, and not even black family relationships were sacrosanct. Allegiances between the descendants of enslaved Africans continue to be divided today, as many jockey against one another, white and Arab patronage. Having created this institution, the slave owner then absented themselves physically from it. And then we carry on the same process. All right, so I just wanted to quickly read that out. As one of the causes of our problems is, due to the closed system that was created and us being seasoned into have these psychological dysfunctionalities. And one of those things is for us to be fragmented or divided inside of our communities. And we're always looking at the other for acceptance. We're always looking for the other in terms of our patronage, always looking for the other to, pay us or look after us and our family. And we need to cut that. We need to cut off that dependency and actually become how can I put it, independent, right? And we need to re-educate our community because we've been educated, as Africans that these people are, almost like savages, or we've been educated from a Caribbean or American standpoint that the Africans are savages. And each way, we're not trying to reconnect with one another because we've been given a false education system. We need to be re-educated and to understand that we are actually one people, one being the source, and the other being, how can I put it, the byproduct of the other, based upon the transatlantic slave trade. We do need a whole re-education process so we can start looking at each other as brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles again. But anyways, let me actually pass it over to Sarah. What's good, my brother? Man, like Sarah, am I talking to myself, G? What are you saying? Where you at, G? Don't do this to me now. All right.
Peace, family, peace. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear you, King?
Can you hear me better now? Hello?
Awesome. Yep, we can hear you.
All right, cool. Peace to the panel. Peace to the family out there. I just wanted to kind of address what the brother said before about, and a couple of people have been saying in the chat about Africans selling other Africans, if that's all right. Can you hear me? Oh man, I've gone out.
We can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
No, we can hear you.
Okay,
don't mind
sorry.
the silence. This is what you call organized.
No, sorry, I get a little paranoid.
Organized over here.
Yeah, because basically what it is, when you study history, you'll find that you can Google it now about Jews helping Hitler. There were at least 100,000 Jews that were in Hitler's army that helped Hitler during his reign. Jewish people, however, do not go around saying Jews helped Hitler. Okay, Jews understand that Hitler had a regime and he had a plan, and he was going to implement that plan regardless of whether he had Jewish help or Chinese help or whoever's help. He had a plan for his country. You can find in history, you can find the British helping the Chinese take over Hong Kong. You can also find the Iraqis actually helping Americans take over Iraq. In all of these cases, none of the actual oppressed people blame, their own people for this oppression. They never say, oh, it's because of Iraqis why, Americans took over. It's because of the British it's because of the Chinese why the British took over. And it's because of the Jews why Hitler, produced the Holocaust. Only in our Holocaust do we hear Africans say, oh, Africans sold or helped with the British, whether the European or the Arab, which is true. There were Africans who helped the Arabs and there were Africans who helped the Europeans. However, they were not the cause of the Holocaust. So the European had a plan for Africa. What they done is implement a plan and they got African help. The Arab had a plan for Africa. What they done is that they had African help. In all societies, what you will find is people who are treacherous and people who are traitors. However, to disconnect yourself from the actual landmass and to disconnect yourself from the actual people doesn't make any sense, because no one else does that. Only in our Holocaust do we attempt to do that. So we attempt to disconnect ourselves from Africa, saying, oh, look, they sold us. Now, look, the history will show that there were Africans who helped, but there were 100,000 Jews, like I said, who helped Hitler. But the Jews understand this, and they've reconciled with it, and they said, well, Hitler had a plan. So those treacherous Jews, they were just treacherous Jews. They weren't the reason for the Holocaust, just like Africans were not the reason for the transatlantic slave trade for 400 years. So I think as Africans, as Black people, we need to actually understand the context and put it into context as to what has actually happened to us and stop blaming one another for our Holocaust.
Ooh, drop the mic. God damn. All right. So before we change the topics, because we will be changing the topics, and I want to make sure that everybody actually has we have who hasn't had his say yet. But I know Run From Your Wife wanted to drop something, because I want to make sure we can you know, we can juggle a few topics, and everybody can kind of have various different ideas flowing through their minds. You know, I know some of us, we have low attention span, so I'm joking. All right. So, Eric, did you want to say something before we go on to run from your wife? All right. Go on, run from your
Hold
wife.
on a second. Hold on a second. Okay. I just wanted to chime in with what Melanated Goddess said just a few moments ago. And I agree with her 100%. And the reason why I agree with her is this. Okay. Now, I understand the institution of slavery had a devastating effect on African people and anyone who has ever been enslaved. I agree with that 100%. However, in the U.S., for example, okay, shortly after Reconstruction, okay, in the early 20th century, you had black families, okay, you had more intact black families with children, okay, than you had um, white intact families with children. You hear me? Okay, and to say that from the early 20th century in the USA, okay, up to let's say the 1960s, okay, this was a fact of life, okay, this was normalcy, um, and for lack of a better term, in the black community, okay. So it isn't as though they weren't capable of doing this. They've done it. It's chronicled in history, okay. And if you talk to some of the elder people living in the United States today, they can tell you that for themselves. They experienced it, they lived through it, okay. They were members of those intact families, okay. But at the same time, um, from the 1960s onward, when feminism came into effect, when black women tried to emulate white women, okay, and join the feminist movement, they were shunned by the white women, okay. And at the same time, the family structure started breaking down. And the reason why the family structure started breaking down was because the Uncle Sam decided to tell black women, for the most part, that hey, we'll give you funding, take care of your children, we'll give you a place to live. We won't charge you very much for rent. You'll get food, clothing, whatever you need, all the necessities you need. But you cannot have a man, black or otherwise, in your household helping you to raise your children. And that's when, um, as far as black family structure breaking down is concerned, that's when a lot of it happened. And it's been continuing to happen since that period, to the point now where, as Melanated God has said, when you have Africans coming off the continent, from countries off the continent of Africa, and they come into the USA and they see what we call in the USA the hoods, the ghettos. You see how black people interact with themselves, okay? How black people do dirt on themselves, okay? And they see that, they don't want to be associated with it, okay? It's a natural prejudice. Why they don't want to be involved with the chaos. The only point I'm trying to make is this, okay? You don't have to fall in line with the mentality that simply because you're black, you can't move forward, okay? Because of um, the institution of slavery. I know it was harsh, okay? I'm not negating that, okay? I'm not trying to throw shade on that. But the fact of the matter is that black people did do well in America after Reconstruction, okay, after formal slavery was over with. And they went backward from the 1960s forward, the majority of black people in the so-called black community in the USA. It's just fact of life, at least there.
All right. All right. So let me get I'm gonna get run from your wife in a hot minute, but scared minds, I just need you to quickly come in and drop a quick promotion and let everybody know what's happening this Thursday and what Scattered Minds podcast is about.
Sorry. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So Scattered Minds Show podcast is we're about talking about issues that affect the Black community. We're talking it's a general news show. So we try and talk about what's going on in current affairs, what's happening in news, in politics, in culture, in pop culture that's affecting the Black community. So I'm going live this Thursday with Kalam on Titans TV at 7 p.m. We'll be doing it every Thursday for 7 p.m. hopefully in the future, talking about different topics, talking about news shows. I'm also going to be, this week in particular, our headline show, the main topic is going to be about what I'm calling the North African question. So, while I've been having discussions at the park and with different people about pan-Africanism, the topic has kept coming up about where do North Africans stand in all of this? Are North Africans African? And there's an argument that says Africans are inherently Black or Black heritage, Bantu, etc. There's an argument that also says if you're from the landmass of Africa, you're African, which means, are the North Africans who may be Arab or lighter skinned, are they African too? So that's the topic we'll be discussing on Thursday. That also opens questions to about the South Africans and the Afrikaans community. But yeah, it's a big topic. It can get controversial. Hopefully we will get controversial with it. You know how Titans TV does it. So yeah, tune in Thursday, 7 p.m. Yes, yeah.
Oh man, can't wait for that. That's the type of shows I like to hear. All right, family. So let's get a bit more upbeat today. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's switch it up. So, Run From Your Wife. Talk to me, Ken.
Yo, can you hear me? Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Sweet. So, this, great conversation, guys. Great conversation. I've been meaning to come on to this show. First time speaker, but a long time listener. Obviously, my main issue is with the entryism that is going on in the Black community. Now, I just want to springboard off what Eric was saying. When are we as Black people, when are we going to take responsibility for our actions and more importantly, our legacies? We all know that there is entryism happening within the Black community, whether it be overt or covert. We all know that there are some serious issues when it comes to subverting the natural beauty within the African people. Why is it so hard for us to disassociate ourselves from that unnatural thinking? Now, going back to what Eric was saying, with regard to the Black home, who is aware of Margaret Sanger? She is a well-known eugenicist, a well-known racist, but she basically went into the Black community and had Black women killing their own children in an attempt to control the Black population. It was turkeys voting for Christmas. How do we stop people like that coming into our community and controlling the narrative?
All right. So how do we stop people like Margaret Sanger? No, just say it a bit better. You pose the question again.
So how do we stop people that have their agendas coming into our communities and trying to control the narrative?
Perfect. I love that. I love that. First of all, I think that we need to construct our community, because we talk about the Black community, which is it's a pseudo community. The only time the Black community is manifests itself is when there is a mad tragedy that's taking place, right? If there's a shooting, everybody comes, like a police, shot a Black boy or something like that. You see everybody come together and we're all organized and mobilized, right? But prior to that, there is no such thing as the Black community, because we have no Black structures, we have no Black organization, we have no Black, independent culture that has leadership. We don't have anything like that. So for me, the first thing is to actually create a Black community. That's what we need to do. And then we can actually organize ourselves and safeguard ourselves and protect ourselves from any adverse influence from coming into our community. But first, we need to construct our community. But I'm going to open it up. I'm going to go to Sarah first, and I'm going to go downstream. So Sarah, Scattered Minds, and then we're going to go down. Go ahead.
Yeah. How do we stop people like Margaret Sanger? I think first of all, you can only stop people when you know how to identify someone who is, I guess, doesn't have your best intentions at heart. And currently, I think, which is sad to see, if I'm honest, to see that Black people don't even understand their own people. They can't even identify their own people that are bad for them, for their own community. We can't seem to identify, like I said, trying to make sense of this is a few layers. This has been a 1,400 year, Holocaust, let's say, mentally and physically for Black people, right? So currently, I would say we're trying to heal from certain things. So we can't even identify the things that are bad for us. So we still hold on to things that we know are still bad for us. So if we literally cannot identify the things that are in our face that are bad for us, sometimes I think, we are not going to be able to identify the things that are not so in our face that are bad for us. And people like Margaret Sanger, I would say, we know that I always talk about spoken about the white Jesus complex that a lot of Black people have within the Black community, right? And so I'm not saying all white people are bad, but what Black people do have is an automatic switch in their head. A lot of Black people have an automatic switch in their head that says if a white person comes in their community, because of the whole colonization process, because of the white supremacy that we've been subjected to, we think that this person is good, essentially. Okay, so we will actually let a person who is of white skin, and I'm not saying not all white people are bad. Good night, mister. Sorry, I'm saying good night to my son. Not all white people are bad, but we cannot identify the bad things within our community because we still hold on to a lot of, white equals good and Black equals bad within our own family. So I would say it's going to take a while. If I'm honest with you, like this is not like an overnight thing. I think we're living in 2018 thinking we're going to have some kind of overnight fix, and we're not. I'm saying we have to start with a really, really small things on the either family level or on the friendship level.
All right. Thank you. Let me get Scattered Minds in, and we're going to go, after Scattered Minds, we're going to go to Banksy. Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So like I was saying, I'm just gonna jump to Melanie Goddess on what she was saying earlier, dropping some beautiful tips. So shout out to Sarah earlier, he also dropped some bombs. I also just want to respond a little bit to Betty because I wanted to clear up what I said about I wasn't saying that Rastafarians assert or claim that dreadlocks are specifically all of African culture, or that African culture is a monolith or one thing, but that dreadlocks are a part of African culture, and that's the part that they've embraced. Actually, they've embraced from particular tribes, Nyabengi, from particular groups in Ethiopia who grew their hair long during the exile of the emperor. So they were emulating particular parts of African culture, understanding that Africa was not a monolith in itself, but there's many different cultures. And actually, a lot of the Rastafari look at Africa and take different parts of different culture from across the different areas and groups and ethnicities in Africa. So that's just on that topic. Onto the topic on how can we stop people like Margaret Sanger. I think the simple answer is you have to have an agenda of your own. If you have your own agenda, it will be very difficult for people to come in with their own agenda. And the problem is Black people haven't had their own agenda for a very long time. And that's why you see issues with, alhamdulillah, like I say, I'm a Muslim, but you see certain Black people who convert to Islam and they join certain groups and they get caught up in certain actions, which is not even representative of Islam or Black culture at all. And it's because they're looking for an agenda, they're looking for something to go towards and a goal. And I think that there's an issue within the Black community and culture. And like Kalam was saying, there's not such a thing as a Black community, it's a pseudo community. And so we actually need to fix up and get an agenda of our own, present our own ideas and say, where are we going? How are we progressing? Where are we getting to? And if we get our own agendas, it'll be a much easier to, you know, watch for people like Margaret Sanger and stop these types of things. So we have to be very clear on what our agenda is and where we're going. But I think it's about presenting that agenda now. It's very easy to attack other people's ideologies or cultures. It's a lot more difficult for us now to build up our own agendas on our own culture. And that's what we have to do as Black people. I think too long we've spent attacking other people's agendas and not enough time was spent on building our own agenda.
Yeah. All right, Banksy.
Okay, hi. I hope I can be heard okay. I'm not sure. My microphone might be a bit weak. I don't know. But I just actually I've met Kalam. I've met you a couple of times, and I actually recorded you a couple of weeks back. But at the park. The funny thing is, I'm of Iranian descent, so I'm not as black as I made out I was. I can be quite dark when I get a bit of a tan, but that's pretty much it. But all I wanted to say was, yes, on Sunday I was talking to actually a group of pan-African guys who were talking about building circuit boards and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. They were talking about building like circuit boards in Africa and all that stuff. And oh, sorry, yes, okay. And they were talking about how to educate African people and raise them up. And this is actually something that Scatter you mentioned just earlier on in regards to because I was mentioning Egyptians and Ethiopians and Libyans and Moroccans, and it seemed that they're not considered African to those who want to build up the African nation or the African continent. Sorry, and it just came across a bit like, okay, so this is not really an African movement. This is a black movement. I don't know. This seemed weird to me. But the other thing was, the reason I'm interested in this is because I feel that the Arab nations or the Middle Eastern countries run on similar parallels. They have very similar parallels with Africa in the way they were treated with the colonial nations, Western nations. Maybe some of them were not directly colonized, but they were certainly treated in very similar ways when it came to economical colonialism and the way America has sort of, in a way, America has expanded their empire, because America, unlike Britain and other empires, did not directly go and invade countries and occupy them, but they have done it through political means. And so I'm genuinely interested in the solutions that Africans or people of African heritage want to have for Africa, for the continent of Africa, and because I want to see if that actually applies or can be applied to the Arab nations or the Middle Eastern nations. So for me, that's where I'm quite interested. I don't know if any of this is being heard. To be honest, I'm not even sure if my mic is working.
Nope,
Thank you.
It's being heard. Thank you very much, Banksy. And I think I would love for you to come back on here on Thursday, 7 p.m. on Scattered Mind Show, so we can actually delve into that topic a little bit more. So thank you for your input. Like, please come back again on Thursday for this. That's going to be epic. Gabs, and I'm going to go to Melanated Goddess.
Hello.
Yep.
Yes, bro. What's happening? Peace to everyone in the chat room. Peace to everyone in the live chat as well. To be fair, I just came in. I was just chiming in. I heard a little bit of discussion. I'm just trying to get. I'm trying to familiarize myself with the topic.
How do we safeguard our community from those who come into our community with their agendas that are, against or opposed to us?
Okay. So how do we safeguard ourselves from people that come into the community that are against us?
Yeah.
Oh boy. First and foremost, that's kind of a tough question, because when you're saying our community, from me personally, when we're saying our community, I don't really see our community as united and as together as such for us to even do anything. If other people were to come into the community to try and defend it, because as you can see already, the Black community is very messed. And a prime example of that is things that's been happening lately down at the park, and to do with some of the brothers that we know. I don't really want to speak on their names and say anything, but what I'm trying to say is before we can even think about trying to, you know, protect ourselves, we need to build up ourselves. You know what I mean? We need to build a community. There's no togetherness. There's no what's the word? There's no how can I say? There's no substance to what we're doing. It's either scattered. There's either a group of people doing one thing there and another group of people doing one thing there, but there's no togetherness. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think before we can even think about defending and deflecting any of this stuff, we need to build ourselves up and come together. Hence why people can come into the community and say certain things and deflect us and derail us, and then to the point where we go back to square one, where, you know, we're getting at each other again. You know, we're getting at each other. We're arguing amongst ourselves, and it just brings back the history, like what was happening in the past, which made us fall. So me personally, I think there's a big task to be done, yeah, with the black community. And, you know, we've been saying this for how many years, and I think you know, I don't know if we're ever going to bite the cherry and start dealing with the issues. Because, like, one thing that's really, like, I'm going to say pissed me off lately is like this whole fiasco over this whole thing at the park with Tan and all this nonsense. Like, to me, I just feel like it's just been a waste of time, waste of energy, waste of momentum, waste of progression. Do you know what I mean? It's just been a waste. Do you see what I'm saying? And it showed people how we are as a community. These events are things that's been happening. I showed, you know, the IQ and the level of where we are at right now in 2018. Do you see what I'm saying? So, me personally, I just think we need to, you know, look at ourselves, look at our actions and things that we do, and, you know, I don't know, get back to the drawing board again.
Definitely. But don't worry, man. Keep your head up, man. This is just a weeding out process, a cleansing process, for everybody to, you know. I don't want to keep my mouth quiet, but it's a nice cleansing process. That's all I'm going to say. Go to. I'm going to go to Melanated Goddess, then over to Eric, and then over to Bay. Melanated, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Okay, so let me go over to Eric.
Okay.
You can hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
now.
go ahead, then.
Okay.
No, let her go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to just kind of speak on the word trauma, right? Because I think that what we do is we speak a lot about our actions as Black people and not really focus on trauma and the impact of how trauma affects behavior, right? So when we look at how Black people are always in competition with one another, we have to remember that this is not like something accidental. You know, we were kind of put against one another back in the slave house. We were forced to fight one another as forms of entertainment. And even in fast forward, being part of this capitalistic system, we're forced to be in competition with one another in order to, quote unquote, achieve this. You know, for me, it would be this American dream. For you guys, it would be this UK dream or whatever, this Western utopia type of thing. And that's not a communal, that's not a community mindset. And like what I drive home to people in my circle is we need to be community minded, right? And when I say that, people in my circle, they look at me like, what is she talking about? I'm like, we need to be community minded. We're not community minded people. So therefore, you know, I could curse you out on social media. I could air your personal business because I don't see you as an extension of me and my community. So how can we keep Margaret Sanger out of our community if it's just me? As long as I'm not getting an abortion, as long as my daughter is safe, that's how we have begun to think as Black people, as opposed to, you know, my nieces and my nephew and my neighbor and the person down the street and the person in the post office, they all look like me, and none of us are going to get abortions. That's kind of how we have to start thinking. So I really think that um, we have to remember how trauma focus, how it fuels our behavior. I think that black men, black women, it's not too, we're not that far removed. People keep saying it's 2018. We should be, and look at how the Jews are. And guess what? The Jews can still speak their language. The Jews still have their God. The Asians still speak their language. Like, how far do they expect us to be when we still trying to? We just, they had a head start, so to speak, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of like Sarah. I feel like it's going to take some time. People need to be patient. They need to work on refocusing their home. Raise a strong black little girl, a strong black young man. Teach him who he is. Teach her who she is. Things will change, but it's not going to change, in no 40 years or no, no, no. I mean, that's just my opinion. People could be optimistic, but um, I have understanding for some of the crazy behaviors I see our brothers and sisters do, because I know that they are sick, that they need healing. And the same way a young girl who's been molested, more than likely she's going to be promiscuous. Am I going to keep calling her a thought and keep calling her a hoe? Or am I going to address the fact that she was violated when she was a very young girl, and this is the reason why you see the behavior? Like, we can't ignore the trauma that occurred and just only address the behavior. That's just not going to work. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we hear you. I think Kalam,
Okay.
I'm at mute. Don't worry, we heard you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Can I say something?
Go to, brother.
Cheers. Melanated Goddess. I understand where you're coming from when you say these things. Obviously, there is trauma that comes from, a place, during, sorry, during someone's development cycle. They could be abused. There could be many reasons why they do certain things. However, when it comes to perpetuating a cycle to your children or to other people, do you think that we have to step back, look at the situation, and take responsibility?
Can I chime into this?
Well, I think that a lot of the re-traumatization is done subconsciously. I don't think that people are consciously saying, I'm going to go fulfill this idea that I'm a thug, so I'm going to be a thug, or I'm going to be a low standard woman, so I'm going to be overly sexualized. I don't think they intentionally do those things, but I think that it's done subconsciously. It's done without them not even realizing it. I had a discussion with one of my coworkers, and I said that if I had another child, I would not administer corporal punishment. And they said, why? The Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. And I said, first of all, when the way that most black people, at least in the United States, discipline their children, they are directly mimicking what the slave master did during slave time. Everything. They are saying, go and get the switch, go and get the belt. That's what the slave master told you, to go get the whip. And then they whip their child, and then they're talking, didn't I tell you? That is their drama. They're acting out what happened on plantations. That's horrible. So do you think, what does that do to the psyche? That child is saying, this is how you correct. You got to beat and break the will of a child.
I would agree with you 100%.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, just to jump in on what Melanated Goddess said. That's why I said it's going to take time, because a lot of the behaviors that a lot of black people, not all, seem to exhibit are literally hangover from slavery. Like, we're living in like a slavery hangover. I've said this to people: if slavery has ended, then why do we keep acting like slaves? You see,
Yeah.
I
and
agree.
They may
and
be.
and a lot of behaviors that go on within quote unquote black community are slave behaviors, but we don't know that's where we got them from, you see. And so what happens is we identify that as being black, and it's like, yo, it's actually not. It's actually a hangover from slavery. So when Melanated Goddess spoke about how black people discipline their children, specifically black Americans and Caribbeans, is literally how the slave master used to discipline you, and how they said you used to go and get the. I was taught to go and get the belt when I was young, right? Go and get the belt. But that you juxtapose that with slavery, the slave master used to tell the slave, go and get the whip. And they used to whip you, like she said, with the same thing that you went and got. Now we think, oh yeah, that's black culture. It's like, no, it really isn't though. So if that little thing that we've just identified was handed down from slavery, what else has been handed down? There are certain psychologies, there are certain mentalities, there are certain things that we haven't even identified, okay, that are not quote unquote black culture, that are taken from either a colonialist or a religious or any kind of mindset. And this is the problem with black people, is black people have still got a lot of healing to do. And so we don't even identify when we are actually carrying on the psychology of people that came to enslave us. Okay, so if we keep carrying on the psychology that was detrimental to us, how do we actually expect to go forward? We have to actually get rid of, okay, the things that were detrimental to us and actually move forward.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And also, scientists have also said that trauma is passed through the DNA. And if you look into the chat, I'm gonna link some scientific articles below. And this talks directly to the psyche of black people today. And Melanated Goddess brought up the fact that Jews went through the Holocaust. Jews went through 3 years of torment, and compared to I don't want to play suffering politics, but you can't really bring their discussion and what they've ever been through to what we're going through right now, because you can see what's happening in the continent of Africa right now. So we can't when we're talking about ourselves, we need to stick to talking about ourselves, not about other people. You get
No,
me?
I think you misunderstood what I was
Can I
saying. What
have
I
a
was
turn,
saying is that
please? Because it was actually
some
my turn.
people. Oh, I thought he was addressing me, so I
Yeah,
just wanted
I
to
was
clarify.
addressing
my
Melanated.
turn.
I
But it
was
was actually my
addressing
turn.
I was
Because you've
addressing
actually other
Melanated Goddess.
people. Yeah, but other people. It was actually
All right,
my turn.
I've just come back.
Can
I've
I
just
just
come back
actually
in
say
again, family.
something?
Hold on, babe. I've just come back in again. Sorry, I had to go and grab some food. You know how it is, man. My belly's too hungry. So, can I get you guys to mute your mic and unmute your mic? I already know it's going to be Betty first. Then it's going to be Melanated Goddess. And who wants to be next? Who just did that? Was that you?
Well, I think that I'm next after the two ladies there.
Okay, so
I mean,
Eric.
if we're going by the order that you're going by.
Yes. So I've been away for a little while, so apologies. So yeah, let me go for Betty, then Melanated Goddess, then Eric. Go ahead.
Okay, if you're worried, did you say something about being worried about what this racist white woman planning to reduce black people's population? This is what you're going to have to do. Fuck like every other black person did before you and make as many babies as possible. End the problem. That's my solution for racist white people who want to reduce black people's population. Fuck and make a baby like everybody else did. Okay, thank you.
Betty. Just putting out there, family. Remember the rules, yeah? Times TV 3 rules. First rule, keep your mics muted at all times. Second rule, respect each other's ciphers. Third rule, keep into your swearing. All right, Melanie Goddess, go ahead.
I just thought that the guy who was speaking before Betty, I think he misunderstood. I was bringing up the Jews kind of went through their Holocaust, and I wasn't saying like, well, they got, they bounced back, so we should be able to. What I was saying is that, yeah, like, yes, they went through a Holocaust, but they weren't removed completely from their culture, from their language, from their religion, from their dress. They weren't stripped the way that we were. So we can't expect the same results that they got. because our situations were different. That's what my point was. I think he misunderstood what I was saying. So I just wanted to clarify that point. That's it.
All right. So we've got Brother Eric, who's next.
Okay. I just want to say at the start that what Melanated Goddess was talking about, Run for Your Wife is talking about, it connects to this. It connects to the basic unit, the smallest basic unit of any country, and that's its family, which begins with the two adult individuals, the, the, the man and the woman. Okay, based on their relationship. Okay, when they come together and they give birth to a new soul, the only way they can teach the new soul is in fact they are committed to a relationship together, preferably a lifelong relationship together. Okay, which is of both their own volition. Okay, and the principles that um these principles of, for example, loyalty, compassion, love, respect for each other. Okay, they can pass that on to their children. Okay, you pass it on to your child. Okay, and you pass it on to your child all your child's life to the point where your child reaches the age of consent. Okay, he or she or they know what those principles are. Okay, they carry out those principles, and it goes on multi generationally. Okay, to the point where, in fact, so-called black community gets its dignity back. Okay, because they have a certain intelligible loyalty to each other. They respect each other. They love each other, which compels them to work together rather than work in competition with one another or be each other's adversaries. If you don't have, if you don't have this basic unity, okay, at the family level or at the so-called um, nuclear family level, how will it metastasize and spread to the rest of the community? If you don't have that strength, because everybody's going their own way or everybody's fighting against one another, you cannot you cannot avoid the the what's that lady's name? The one that started Planned Parenthood, singer. You can't avoid that because you can't see it when it's infiltrating into your community because you won't see that oddity in the relations between people in the community because people in the community have no loyalty to each other. They have no love for each other. They have no respect for each other. Okay, you can't build on nothing. That's all I have to say on that point.
Thank you, King. Thank you. Again, if you wanted my attention right now, please mute your mic and unmute your mic several times so I can swing it over to you. All right, family? Just mute your mic and
What happened to the screen here? Because
all right, so I'm going to go to Run From Your Wife. Sorry, I'm going to mute your mic, Eric. Run From Your Wife, then Raz.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Going back to what Sarah and Menelated Goddess were saying, sorry, I'm in total agreement with you. You know, there are aspects of slavery that have been passed down to us as a people. You know, whether it be in the diaspora or, you know, through colonialism in Africa. But what I'm saying is the buck must stop somewhere. Now, if it cannot stop between one man and one woman that come together and say, you know what, I don't want my child to go through what I went through as a child, then I feel that we are doomed. I'll give you an example. Now, me growing up, I did not have a father figure. He was nowhere to be seen. Obviously, that's another story completely. We could talk about the dynamics of that relationship there. But my point is that if I was to get with a woman, I would be married to them. I would be, I would have a relationship with them, and I would want to bring that child up in a loving relationship so that they did not have to experience what I experienced as a child. The buck has to stop somewhere, and I get where you guys are coming from, and I agree with you to a degree that there are certain behaviors that are detrimental to us. But where if the buck cannot stop with the current generation, where does it stop? How far do we need? Another 400 years? How far? I mean, how do you quantify that? Sorry, I'm going on, but sorry. Go ahead.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Can I respond? Run from your wife. The thing is, I get your frustration, right? And I can hear that you're frustrated. But if I'm speaking to you, and I don't mean to, categorize people in their intelligence, but I speak to you, and I'm obviously speaking to somebody who's been thinking about stuff, right? There are a lot of people who just aren't thinking about stuff and just are just doing stuff on autopilot, right? So a lot of people that are doing stuff on autopilot that aren't actually thinking about why they're doing it, what's the motivation for doing it, right, are literally just doing it just because. Now, you seem like the type of person to be, why did I do that? You're going to analyze yourself and say, actually, is that good for me? Is that good for the people that are around me? But what it is that I hear your frustration, but a lot of us, okay, are actually on autopilot. What is part of our autopilot to do on a day-to-day basis? Because we were raised in a certain family and our family do this, X, Y, Z, we just do it on autopilot. I had to break away from what my family normally do, right? And I'm sure probably you did, right? Because your family was on autopilot and they expect you to follow the same program that they followed. But what happens is you get one family member, that becomes a quote unquote, I bend my two fingers when I say this, a black sheep, right? Because they've gone against the quote unquote program. And to tell the truth, most people are on a program. They're on autopilot. But then for the people that aren't, and for the people that break free of the autopilot, regime, it becomes very frustrating to look at the rest of the people and say, hang on, you guys are not even thinking as to why you're doing X, Y, and Z. So I hear your frustration, but you say, could it take another 100 years? My brother, it could take another 500. That's all I'm saying. It could take another 500.
Let me get Rich in. I do actually want to close down the show.
We can't hear you.
Sorry?
We couldn't hear you, man.
So, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure we've gone over the 2-hour mark, right? So I don't want to keep on going for a 4-hour show or anything like that. So let me get Rich Kid on and then Scattered Minds on.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Peace to the panel. You know what? I'm just listening to a good conversation still. I want to throw 2 pence in, but I don't want to be controversial. I want to say or ask the panel, do you think the black race is at war with white supremacy or not? And if you do, what do you think are the remedies?
Oh man, you tried to just that you're introducing a new topic there where I'm trying to shut down the show. Again, like
sorry, Kalam, sorry.
It goes for, I think that's going to be a second show now. Like that's a different show. So family, we are trying to wind down right now. Okay, we're trying to wind down. Let me just quickly shout out Hawaii. Our queen over. I believe you're in Canada. I'm assuming based upon the donation, right? Hawaii. Okay. Shouts out to you, Queen, for donating and supporting. You're constantly supporting Tines TV, constantly supporting people who are doing a lot of the good works in the community. Uncle Ty, Sarah, and the others who have got channels up. You're constantly there supporting, constantly speaking words of positivity and productivity. So we love you. bless you, Queen. We appreciate you. Trust me, 100%. Hassan, I see you there as well. Who else is up in the comment section? Quickly just check the comment section. Man like Shola is up in here as well. Exane is up in here. I know we got my brother Manny Romero, old school brother right there. Love to all of you guys for constantly showing us love in the comment sections. Yeah, buddy. All right. Trust me. Beautiful spirit. Man like Zulu, aren't you in here? Zulu, I thought you was in here earlier on. Okay. So yeah, let me go to Scattered Minds.
Yeah, calm, safe, Kalam. Shout out to everyone in the chat room as well. Remember, come back here Thursday, 7 p.m. for the show, Scattered Minds and Titans TV. We'll be doing that big. And if you have something to say about the North African question, jump in on that. So yeah, we're wrapping up. So I'm not really going to respond too much about the question about white supremacy. That is a good question. It's just going to take me too much down that line. What I'd say again is to run to a wife, and also to Sarah, even to what you guys are just saying about how long is it going to take. I would say it takes as long as it takes for us. Like I was saying, you have to be the change you want to see. You have to go out there and you have to start acting. And like I say, I call myself a Pan-Africanist. I'm a Pan-African. I stand on the principles and the ideas of Marcus Garvey, who created the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. So I believe that in this day and age, that's what we really ought to be doing. We really ought to be creating those kinds of associations. And if you actually want this thing to happen sooner, it's not just about one man and one woman. It's about, once you make that change in yourself, uniting with other people who have made that change with themselves, creating organizations, institutions, and structures within our community. And that will happen much quicker for us rather than sitting on our hands and asking, when's it going to change? The question is, when are we going to unite together, get our principles together, get our communities together, and unite on the ideas of Pan-Africanism as they stand? Do you know what I mean? When are we going to talk more about what Pan-Africanism means and how we could all, whether we're South African, Zulu, or West African, Yoruba, how we could still unite on an African principle and ideology, or even if we're Jamaican, etc. That's where we need to take it, and that's the answer, and that's the solution. So yeah, I just want to wrap up on that.
Salute. That was massive. Still, you know what? Zulu's been trying to get in here for quite some time. So Zulu, if you got anything you would like to drop to our community, and like Zulu, talk to me, King. All right, so we're gonna close down the show, right? Because I think we've had, a healthy array of topics that we've covered in the last couple of hours. I believe there's been at least 3 to 4 different topics we've been jumping on. I want to have more shows like this, Yeah, I want to have more shows like this. I'm going to get my brother, Run From Your Wife, to just pick up the Discord in a hot second. I want more shows like this. I love shows like this. So please, can we do more shows like this? I know we're definitely going to have something similar to this on Thursday, right? On Thursday, 7 p.m. with my brother, Scattered Minds. We're going to have something very much so similar like this, but I want to have more content like this. And I want to speak to our different communities as well, right? Today we've been speaking primarily on the Black issues and what's been facing us. But talk to me. If you're from a different community, talk to me, because we can always learn from each other, all right? So you've just listened into our issues, we can learn from you. We had our brother from Iran popping in, speaking about Arab issues as well. We can learn from you as well, right? If we have some of our English folks who can pop in and discuss the issues that's facing them, we can learn from you as well, all right? So let's keep it up. This is what Titans TV is built upon. Is built upon the principle of freedom of speech, is built upon multi-culturalism and diversity. We want to hear, viewpoints from different ethnicities, from different cultures, from different backgrounds, from different religions as well, because we can always learn from each other. All right. Run From Your Wife. Yeah, drop that like it's hot, baby. We need to promote the Discord. So please promote the Discord before we shut down.
It's done, bro. Just promote it now.
Go ahead, but tell the audience a bit more about the Discord and your role in setting up the Discord as well, please.
Well, I don't really have a big role. I help Kalam when he needs help. which is really ever because he still hasn't spoken to me about it. But hopefully, in time, he will be able to use the Discord and people can have the discussions about Kemet, black issues, Christian issues, Islamic issues, and we can see where we can go with that. But yes, there is a SE discussion, it's a casual discussion. So if people want to go in there and, have their 2 cents with someone else, they're quite welcome to do so.
All right. So family, okay, this is the Discord link. This is, well, not the link, but this is it right here. We have, how many people do we have on the Discord right now?
We have about 250 people, but if Kalam was to take my advice on how to go about structuring his shows, there would be a lot more people on the Discord. There'll be a lot more conversations. I mean, that's not to say that there isn't a lot of conversations that go on there currently. I mean, we've had quite a lot of interesting debates there in the SD discussions and casual discussions, and even in the general pit. But it's up to Kalam really. If he wants this to blow up, it will blow up, and it will be a great thing.
Definitely. Trust me, I'm going to get at it soon, man. I'm going to get at it soon. When I've got my system set up properly, we're going to do this. Trust me. But yeah, man, trust me, Discord is the place to be. We're going to get it on and popping. I promised that we're going to do things on Mondays on the Discord, right? Today, I tried my very best to actually run the OBS so we can, do these similar shows, right? So I'm going to get it in operation soon. Trust me. Just give me some time to just work out all the kinks on my laptop, on my internet connection, and really, find my way around the system. And once we do, we're gonna be flying. Okay, so thank you guys again. What I keep telling you guys, right? When I'm saying to you guys, support Titans TV, right? Not everybody has to donate money, right, to support Titans TV. We say the littlest thing that we ask you to do is just hit the like button. I haven't even hit the like button. I'm hitting the like button now. Simply just hit the like button. That's a way or means of supporting Titans TV, right? Commenting after after this video has been finished is a way of supporting Titans TV. Sharing this link is a way of supporting Titans TV. Coming onto the panel, right, and also sharing your opinions and views is another way of supporting Titans TV. But one of the biggest and best ways of supporting Titans TV that I love that my brothers and sisters are doing is like literally coming on, asking me, Kalam, what do I need help? What do you need help on? Kalam, this is something new that I think that if you, adapted this into your own platform, you can grow, or it can be much more organized. Things like that. Please just help me, show me the way, and we will definitely, we'll definitely change things up so we can have a better experience over here on Titans TV. Family, we're finished right now, but of course, we're going to continue discussion off air. If you'd like to get in, I'm telling you right now, it's actually blocked up. If you'd like to get in, right, here is the link. Come through, have some fun with us, and discuss. Peace and love, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Amen.